Welcome to episode 1, The Gut-Wrenching Cry, Healing, the Residue of Trauma. So, are you ready to unlock your healing power, to turn your wounds into wisdom, to replace the fear of the unknown with courage to face it head on? If so, welcome to the Empowered Transformational Healing Podcast, a beacon of hope in your healing journey. I am your host, Krystal Jae, and now I would love for you to imagine this space as a sanctuary where we unravel the tightly knotted threads of our past traumas, where we transform our secret silent cries of pain into powerful roars of strength, a place where we finally break free from the invisible chains that are holding us hostage. It's time to stop questioning who you are and start discovering your authentic self. This is not just about survival. It's about thriving. It's about embracing the journey of transformational healing that leads you to live a life filled with joy, passion, and purpose. Each week, we will dive into powerful conversations, share inspirational stories, and sometimes heartbreaking stories, because guess what? It's all real and it's all true. And we'll provide practical tools that will empower you to navigate through life's challenges. So no matter where you are in your healing journey, this podcast here is designed to help you tap into your inner strength and embrace your uniqueness and awaken with your full potential. So now, let's begin. The gut-wrenching cry and healing the residue of trauma. I know that there are many people out there who are like me, or who were like me when I was suffering in silence and no one knew. Like, when I say I was doing it in silence, my car rides to work used to be crying sessions. My car rides to run errands used to be crying sessions. And then it was like, as soon as I would pull up to my destination, I would wipe the tears and put on a smile. And I guess it's a good thing that I'm a person who I don't always wear makeup. So I guess it's easier to, wipe the tears and go on about my business, because I didn't have to worry about, crying and messing up my makeup. And I would get out that car and go on about my day like that crying session never happened. And then sometimes it'd be on my way from work, and I would do that cry, getting it all out. And once I got home, had to take a moment in the parking lot to get it together. But there's many times I knew, okay, what time is it? All right, kids might be outside, or husband may be already outside, or whatever else. And so I knew before I got there, I needed to get myself together. So no one ever knew about the crying session that I had in my car. And then there's those times to where I was just really overwhelmed and just really needed an outlet. And going throughout my day, there wasn't a time to take a moment and go to the river and listen to the water flow, or take a moment, period. And I would end up in the shower. And sometimes I would make sure that the TV was playing in the room, or that I brought my phone in the bathroom and played music while I was in the shower, because I knew that I was about to let it out. And I would get in the shower, and it's like immediately when I got in there goes that gut wrenching cry. Have you had that cry? The cry to where it's like it comes from deep within you. It's like it's coming from like the depth of your soul. That cry to where you're crying so hard that it's making you gasp for air. That cry that you really just leading you up to the moment of wailing and just yelling and crying out. But of course, I couldn't let that out. I had to hold in that wail, and I had to hold in that scream, that yell. And I would just keep that gut wrenching cry that came from the very depths of my soul. That pain, that suffering that I had inside that was silent, and just hold there and cry and can't barely catch my breath, and holding myself, and at the same time telling myself, you're okay. You're going to make this through this. You're okay. You got this. God, help me. Help me to get through what this is. Help me to understand. Help me to understand why people don't understand that I also hurt. I also am in pain. I also been through a lot of stuff. Because you see, I was and I am that strong person. I'm that person to where everybody else comes to me and we talk and we laugh, and sometimes they're sharing what they're going through. And I'm able to be like, well, you know what? When I was in a similar space, this is what happened. This is what I did. And this is how it came out. You see, it's never my place to tell someone what choice or decision that they need to make, because it's not my life, it's theirs. But what I can do is I can share the experiences that I've been through, whether it's the good, the bad, the ugly, the indescribable, because fortunately, yet unfortunately, I've also been through a lot of trauma. I've been through trauma that has literally been through every type of trauma there is, whether it was psychological, sexual, physical, emotional, medical. I've experienced them all. And what I did was, over the years, I would sit there, and ever since high school, I would go to therapy. And it was like I would process whatever was going on at that moment. And then after a few weeks, therapy was over. And then it was like on with my life. And then something else would happen, or another two things, or whatever else. And I'll end up in therapy. And throughout the years, in and out, in and out, in and out of therapy. And I always was like, okay, I'm doing what I need to do. I'm seeking the help, I'm seeking the guidance. So once I do that talk and process, then that's over. So I should be healed. I should be moving on and nothing else affects me. But yet, those times in the shower, and believe me, there was even times in my closet where I would just ball up like a newborn baby and just cry like I was back in my mother's womb. That was what was still left even after therapy, even after my so called processing, even after I've gone on and I'm supposed to be living life as being healed from whatever it was, whatever the trauma was previously. I thought this is just how life is. But at least I can be a guide to others and tell them and show them and share the wisdom and the guidance and and show them that they're not alone in this. Allow others to learn from what I've already been through to hopefully prevent them from having to go through those same things. But one day I reached my breaking point. It wasn't like a breaking point to where I broke and I needed therapy. Oh no. This breaking point, this breaking point, it was like 25 years in the making. And if I really want to be really honest, it was a lot longer than that in the making. Because when I reached this breaking point, that lifetime of trauma came flowing back. Hell, it wasn't flowing, it was a freaking tsunami coming in. And let's talk about like anxiety and depression and PTSD and everything just flowing all in at one time. Things that you not even know was still hitting in the depths of my soul that I still wasn't healed from, and things that I believed and I just knew that I was better from. All of it came back at once, hitting me like it all was happening the same day. That is what broke me. It broke everything that I had. There was no more suffering in silence because there was no silence. It was here and it was present. And all of it was like it was the first day. So, of course, immediately part of my body just went into protective mode. That fight and flight got activated so fast with so many signs. There goes the tears, the anger, the hurt, the guilt, the blame, the wanting to run, but then wanting to hide, the wanting to stand strong and fight, but yet ball up like that newborn baby. My heart racing, my body sweating, my stomach all in knots, going from hot to cold to sad. I was immediately broken with everything that had happened to me prior to that moment. What does that look like? Man. And what led to that? Man. The best way that I can put it is like when you're playing Jenga. And when you first play, you sit down and you make sure you have this good, sturdy, solid surface. And that is nice and even. So where when you're building that tower of Jenga blocks, that they're held together. And then once you build that tower, if you're like me, I go in and I smush everything together, making sure it's all tight because you don't want to make the game too easy, right? Well, ever since I was little, every trauma had took its turn on pulling a block. Well, that day, the block that was pulled, that block that trauma pulled that day, brought everything crashing down. And all those blocks was just everywhere. So where do I start back? How do I start back to rebuild myself? If that one event would have happened without all the other traumas running in, if that wasn't the last block, I would have been able to handle it a lot differently. But instead, it broke me because everything fell apart. My mind, my body, my soul, it was all on defense and protect. Whether protect is running or hiding or standing strong and actually fighting back. You see, that event haven't been, I'll say, completely resolved. Because you see, in that, I ended up losing, or yeah, we'll stick with losing. I ended up losing people that I cared about, people who meant a whole lot in my life. But what my body remembered was trauma, pain, agony, betrayal, abandonment, fear, no confidence, no love. That's what my body felt. That's where my mind went to. It was like, remember when this happened? And remember when this happened? And my subconscious mind was like, bing, 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 bing. Here you go. And that tsunami came in. And I went down. In that, I ended up not being able to see two kids who are very, very, very important in my life and who I will always love because me and their parents didn't see eye to eye. And even though we went through that stage of all the different emotions and trying to repair and trying to have conversations or actually having conversations, there comes a time to where you can only conversate so much. And there's a time for action. And when actions aren't meeting conversations, then you have to make a decision, right? But before we get to there, let's talk about that break. That mental break was a true mental breakdown. I had went to my room and I didn't leave that room again for weeks. I stayed in my bed and I went through that phase of doing nothing but sleeping. And then I wouldn't wake up to eat, I wouldn't wake up to drink. Only woke up to use the bathroom and get back in that bed and put my covers on and get my pillows all adjusted, my 6 pillows. Yes, I sleep with 6 pillows. They all have their place, their purpose. Yes, and it's lovely. Okay. But I would get back in that bed and I would lay there. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't pick up my phone. I would just lay there and go right back to sleep. I would go days without taking a shower, without brushing my teeth. I was done. I was past done. I was broken. Then my kids and my husband, they would always bring me food and bring me drinks. And the kids would be like, Mom, you need to eat this. Or Mom, what have you ate today? Or Mom, have you had some water today? Or anything. And in the back of my head, I'm sitting up there and I'm like, Krystal, why? Get up. Your kids don't even see you cry. And now they see you broken. Get up. But did I get up? No. I was broken. I didn't have nothing to stand on. I was completely, utterly broken. My oldest, you see, he's in the military. And so he got wind of everything because we talk all the time. And so he started calling every day, several times a day. Mom, did you get this? Mom, did you do that? And if I say no, he'll go and he'll call his dad, or he'll call one of his siblings and be like, you need to take mom this. And I'm not getting off the phone until she eat, or I'm not getting off the phone until she drink, or whatever else. And then my sleeping, doing nothing but sleeping, it turned into not being able to sleep. It turned into every time I closed my eyes, I immediately went into a nightmare. And I'm not talking about those, ooh, it's a snake and oh my gosh, let me wake up, or anything like that. No. Some of these were living some of my most traumatic experiences. Some of them was people close to me instead of the actual person who was in those traumatic experiences. It was like my mind replaced them to the ones I loved and the ones I cared about. And at the same time of being broken because of all of this trauma, I was also grieving a child that was not mine by birth, but I did everything for like she was mine. Loved her like she was mine. And because of a disagreement or misunderstanding or the situation, I can't even tell you what it all ended up being because it's still not clear today. And it's kind of crazy that today I'm doing this and she just turned 2 yesterday. But it was a lot because I knew it's hard to go through all of that lifetime of trauma and also like grieve a child, but yet you know they're alive. And it's just it was a lot. So nightmares. And I finally had started getting up and taking showers and brushing my teeth and trying to eat a little bit, but I was still in my room. And I would try to go out the room and I would make it to the living room and I would sit down. Sometimes it'll be for 2 minutes, sometimes 5, sometimes 30 minutes, and then I'll just get back up and go to my room. But at least I made it out the room this time. At least I was back to taking showers and brushing my teeth. My poor husband. He was probably like, oh my gosh, this funky girl don't get up and get out this bed and go take a shower. But at that moment, there was nothing that could have brought me back to at least being in that survival mode that I had lived most of my life. And so it was one night when I was laying in the bed and I was trying my best to sleep, and it had been so long since I had gotten some sleep, some real sleep. It had been days. And I sat there and I was like, I can't do this. I want more. You got to get up, Krystal. You got to get it together. And so I picked up my phone and I got on my doctor's app and I scheduled a virtual appointment. for the next day. So then that way I could finally get some help. So of course, talking to the doctor, they gave me pills and started me on anxiety medicines and was saying do this or whatever else and trying to get me into a psychiatrist and get me into therapy and all these other things. And at the same time, I done went on leave from work and everything else because my life had fell apart. And then it was like, okay, things are starting to move. Krystal, you know things that you can do to get up. So I started with my affirmations and I started, you know, doing my prayers heavenly and reading the Bible and all the things that I knew while waiting to hear back for my psychiatry appointment and my therapy appointment, only to find out that there's a long wait to see either one. Months. But I was lucky because I had a good doctor by my side and one that actually cared and wanted to see me get back better. And the and so they started consulting with like a psychiatrist and a case manager and everything else, and they were like a team. And so I would hear from the case manager, well, psychiatrist putting you on this, or the doctor be like, they changed your meds to this, and or they said this or whatever else. And so it's always like, seriously, I never really talked to the psychiatrist, only when like there was like a real med change and he really needed to just talk to me and make sure it was okay and whatever else. And he sat there, and one day he told me, he was like, you need to rewire your mind. And I was like, huh? He was like, you need to rewire your mind. Well, what is that? How do I do that? And what does that mean? Rewire your mind. That's all that I kept getting. Rewire your mind. So then it left me to be like, okay, at this point, I just think he's just saying something and don't really know how to explain it. And so I was like, it's still going to be a while. And I was ready to get my life back together because me being down and out like that, oh, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. So I had to go ahead and start researching and remember, Krystal, you was in nursing school. What did you learn? Krystal, you have a history working in mental health facilities. What did you learn? Use the knowledge that you have, and you know how to research and gain even more knowledge. Use that. And that's what I started doing. And that's how I slowly started building and getting out and just clawing my way up from that sinkhole that I was in. It was like I was in a sinkhole. And then it was like it was topped with quicksand. And then it was like I was steady going and just kept clawing and kept trying. And then I would get stuck. And then I had to build myself back up. and remember who God is, and that I can do all things through Him, because He will not leave me. And so I learned what therapeutic art is. I took the classes and started implementing them and doing the worksheets and the colors and the activities and everything else. Krystal, you wrote a book. I went back to it, pulled it out, read it, started implementing. Krystal, you know how to meditate, but let's go deeper. Got meditated certified and started implementing and doing and working and meditating and processing and journaling and video journaling. Trying to attract all the good things. I no longer wanted to suffer in silence, and I refused to just go back to what people would call my baseline. That survival mode, that's your baseline. That's not living. It's your baseline. It's where we've been through stuff and we may have talked to someone or we may filed it away. How many times have you filed things away? Because over the years, I know I filed things away. It was like, okay, this is what happened. All right, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, there you go. You go here. Okay, let me grab this file over here. Okay, where do you go? All right. You go to S? Okay, let me find the S's. All right, you go there. How many times have you filed away your trauma? How many times have you filed away being bullied, being put down, being abandoned, being left, being talked about like you did not exist? May have been physically abused, been punched, been slapped, been whipped, been cheated on, been told or treated like you are nothing but the ground that they walk on. You may have grew up seeing a loved one get abused and mistreated. You may have been the one that was abused and mistreated. You may have been the one that grew up wondering, why don't they love me? Having that fear of abandonment, growing up with that, but not knowing what it is, just knowing that something just don't feel right, or you're missing something, or you're wondering why. Why, why? You don't have to live that way. You don't have to file those away, be like, okay, I done looked over it. It's all right. Okay, I'm not doing this no more. I'm not dealing with that no more. I'm over this. We done fixed this. We're back together, or we done fixed our friendship, or we done fixed our relationship, or we done fixed our marriage, or or I done changed doctors, or whatever it may be. You don't have to just be like, okay, I took action, or I put it away and that's it. Stop filing away that trauma, because one day that file cabinet is going to open and the wind's going to blow and they're going to be everywhere. And it's going to be more of it than you can handle. And that's what happened to me. And I, for one, don't want that to happen to anyone else if I can help prevent it. And if someone's going through it and I've then made it to the other side, thank God. That now they don't have to walk on that path, on their journey by themselves. You don't have to do it by yourself, because it's not fun trying to figure out the steps and what's right and what's wrong and why did this happen this way and what do I need to do next. You don't have to do it by yourself, because it feels like the worst thing. I can't even say the worst thing. It feels bad though. And it's hard. Oh, is it so hard? And so that's why I, Krystal Jae, am now just not just a life coach, but a trauma recovery coach. Because it's important to, when we're working with others or having life experiences and helping others, that we're trauma informed, and we know like what not to do, and what actions not to say, and whatever else when someone may be triggered by that trauma, or if we're going through something and someone's triggered, you know how to effectively help and not make it worse. To be able to answer questions and know that if I don't know, let me go find out. Just like that psychiatrist was telling me, rewire your mind. And I'm like, what is that? And he couldn't tell me. I had to go find out. And then once I read about it and watched the videos about it and learned more about it, I was like, oh, that makes sense. So I started implementing it. And I started growing. And this light started growing bigger, because it was like my body was just a whole black, empty cave with just little bits of light like shooting through, like where the cave had like holes in it, and like different places had lights, and then it was like they were just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and letting more in, and I was just growing and getting full and learning the true meaning of healing and experiencing that, getting to baseline of the survival mode, but not staying there, but keep leveling up, getting full, learning what it really meant to overcome fears, to break the bounds of the limitations of trauma, of what I call the residue. Because you see, when we process the trauma and we call ourselves moving on from it, it still leaves a residue. And that residue, it builds because it's not clean. It's still there. And so continuing to live with that residue of trauma, I picture it as that residue is what was building in the depths of my inner being, in the depths of my soul. That gut-wrenching cry, that's why it comes from down within. That's where that silence of that suffering in silence came from all that residue of the trauma. It's not for us to live in it. It's not for us to have that gut-wrenching cry due to not healing from that residue of the traumas that we've been through. That low confidence is from the residue. The not knowing who you are is from the residue. The I don't want to do this, but because someone else want to do this and I don't want to say no because I don't want them to leave me, that's from the residue. The self-doubt, the pain, the not knowing what you're worth, the sadness, the anxiousness. You may even have stomach issues, or for me, migraines. And not just regular migraines that had evolved when I really started going through a lot of trauma. Because now when I can think about around the time that my first hemiplegic migraine happened, like the very first time, and they're like, oh, you had a TIA? Well, now I know that, later on down the line, I started having them a lot more often. And after, oh my gosh, that's a whole nother story. We're not even going to go there. We'll go there one day, but today's not the day. But I can pinpoint the trauma that turned my migraines that I had ever since I was little into hemiplegic migraines. Migraines that mimicked a stroke. And that was all because of the residue of trauma. So what does that mean? It means not to live in that place, not to live in that survival mode, because you can thrive. You can own your life. You can take time to discover who you are and never doubt that again. You can live with joy, passion, and purpose. You can have the things that you desire and that you deserve. That self-love, that confidence. It's right here for you. You just have to say yes to yourself. Invest in yourself. Continue to listen to podcasts and take the actions and the steps that you need to heal from that residue so that you no longer have that gut-wrenching cry. No more suffering in silence. It's time to come out and live your life, thrive in life as your authentic self. Because once I discovered in this journey of this empowered transformational healing that I have been through and that I'm going on, I have learned to become me, Krystal Jae. And what does that mean? I had to let go of the things that weren't me. Because when we grow up, we pick up bits and pieces of the people that raise us and our family and our and when we start socializing in school and the things we see on TV and hear on the radio or see in the store or wherever else. But learning which part of that is you. But that's another story. It's time. It's your time to heal. And I call it empowered transformational healing because as we're on this journey to healing, it's essential to have empowerment, to be empowered. And if we're really truly healing, and guess what? We're going to have a transformation. It's like we were all this time been that caterpillar. And now you're in that cocoon and you're going to emerge as that butterfly, that beautiful butterfly. That there is your authentic self. Leave the caterpillar. It's time for you to get into your cocoon so you can transform into your beautiful butterfly. Because it is so much better over here on the other side of suffering and silence, to thrive in life, to have joy and true inner peace and self love and confidence. It's your time. So now, leave that suffering and silence, that gut wrenching cry, and begin your empowered transformational healing journey to you, your authentic self, to healing, to transforming, rewiring your mind, because that's part of the transformation. And that's going to be a whole episode, is rewiring your minds and the different steps that you can take. Because a brief moment of what that is your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. They still talk, and your subconscious mind remembers everything. And it reminds your conscious mind, remember this, those triggers. Well, guess what? We can rewire or change those neurotransmitters to where we're not always getting that, remember this. Instead, you're going to be making memories and replacing those remember this with wonderful memories of the life of you living as your authentic self, of you getting the things that you desire and that you deserve, and of you being full of confidence and self-love and being loved as you and not worried about the a fear of abandonment or anything else. You will learn the boundaries and then stick to them. You will learn your vulnerabilities and embrace them. You will learn the things that you need to heal, to overcome, to break the chains of trauma. So this journey of empowered transformational healing, you don't have to do alone. We're going to do this together. We are a sisterhood, a community, the mentor, the guide, the big sister. It's time. It's time. It's time to live your life. Thank you for joining me today on the Empowered Transformational Healing Podcast with me, Krystal Jae. And we never know what others are going through silently. So take time to share, follow, and subscribe. And as always, believe in all that you are and know that there is this power within you that is greater than any obstacle.